Good evening, everyone, and I hope you're all doing well. My name is Ayomide, and I'm delighted to be your host for today's practical workshop, Attack Analysis. And also, thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. It's super duper exciting to have such a diverse group of cybersecurity enthusiasts and professionals here. Let's start quickly with a check-in. So let me know how you're doing in the chat box. Give me something. Give me something to ginger me. Ginger your host this night. Give me something in the chat box. Oh, somebody raising their hand. So I'm not seeing anything in the chat box. So are you guys not excited to be here? Okay. Just give me something. Say you're excited. You're happy to be here. You can't wait to learn so much. Yes, you can run transfer. I don't mind. I take millions, please. I take dollars. Thank you. Okay. Ooh, I'm loving this energy. Okay. All right. I'm glad that you're all happy to be here. I'm glad that the energy is rotating. All right. Okay, guys. Okay. So before we dive into the workshop, I'd like to invite the community manager of DOA Trafficker to briefly tell us about the community and the amazing work we are doing. I don't want to use we are doing, because I'm in the community too, and you should be in the community too. So quickly, James, over to you.
Hi everyone, good evening everyone. How are you all doing today? Please, if you can hear me, can you react with an emoji? Okay, good. All right, so welcome to this practical workshop. So this practical workshop is talking about analyzing web attack with Wazuh. So it's promising to be an insightful, engaging workshop. So today's section is focused on practical approach to understanding and analyzing web-based attack. So in today's workshop, you'll be learning about how to identify vulnerabilities, analyze malicious activities, respond effectively using Wazuh platform. So it doesn't matter if you're a seasoned professional, you're a beginner, or this is your first time attending any workshop, cybersecurity workshop, doesn't matter. So this workshop is for everyone. So this section includes the mixture of theoretical insights and on experience. So there'll be room for questions and answer. So whatsoever thing that is bothering you about the section, so please at the end of you can just put it down at the chat box. So please, I'm encouraging every one of us to pay attention, not be distracted, so that you get the best out of this workshop. So if you have any question, like I said earlier, please do well to put it in the chat box. Thanks so much. I am really over to you.
Okay. Thank you, James. Now, it's my ultimate pleasure to introduce our facilitator for today, in person of Francis Timilehin. Francis is a cybersecurity engineer with over 5 years of experience. He holds a master's degree in security and network engineering and currently works at Wazuh as the content director. In his role, Francis has been instrumental in simplifying complex cybersecurity concepts through blog posts and documentation, empowering users worldwide to leverage Wazuh's platform effectively. Francis, it's truly a privilege to have you with us today. Before we get started, I'd love to ask you a few quick questions to inspire our audience. Please let me know if you can hear me, Francis.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So, what inspired you to focus on this field?
Okay, so hi everybody. Thank you for the introduction. So what inspired me to join the field of cybersecurity? Basically, simple terms, I'll say it's cool, right? I did electronics, electrical engineering in my undergraduate, and I've just always had a knack for computers, right? I've always been drawn to computers basically, and I think cybersecurity is a very interesting field because it's very relevant. These days we have lots of technologies. We have great technologies, machine learning, AI, right? And it's the new trend. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that, Francis. Um, what advice would you give to someone, pursuing a career in cybersecurity?
I'm going to say start now, right? I'm going to say start now because, as I mentioned earlier, like it's the new trend, right? Start now, and it's extremely relevant, right? I feel like cybersecurity is a growing field. Right now, it hasn't really taken form like software development and other aspects of technology, right? So if you want to do cybersecurity, I think now is the time for you to key yourself into that field.
All right, Francis, what do you all participants will take away from today's session?
Okay. So the topic of today's section is analyzing web attacks, right? So at the end of this section, I think we would understand or have a better understanding of web security and attacks. We would have a good understanding of how to use Wazuh, right? And how to use Wazuh to detect, respond to threats that might affect web applications.
All right. Thank you so much, Francis, for sharing your insights. The floor is yours. But don't forget to our participants to keep your sizzling, burning questions for Francis at the end of the workshop. The floor is yours, Francis.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm going to proceed to sharing my screen. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so as I already introduced me, my name is Francis Timilehin Jeremiah. I am the content director at Wazuh, and I'm also a cybersecurity engineer. Right, so today's talk, is analyzing web attacks with Wazuh. So let's get started. So the content for today's talk is introduction to web application security and attacks, introduction to Wazuh. I'm going to do a demo on like a small attack simulation, and we're going to do another demo on incident response. So basically, we're going to attack a vulnerable web application, and we're also going to respond to this attack. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, what we expected to learn web application security and attacks, learn how to set up Wazuh. We're going to understand some Wazuh use cases, right? So we're going to learn how to write like simple Wazuh detection rules, and learn how to configure the Wazuh active response model, which is used for incident response. All right, so the first part, introduction to web application security and attacks. So I think before we go into the talking about the attacks or best practices, I think we need to understand what the web application is, right? So web application basically, it's a program, right? So an application stored on a server and is delivered over the internet through a browser interface, right? So at this point, it's safe to say that all of us, like and everybody that has some sort of mobile device, everybody that has a laptop, right? We use web applications like day to day. As far as you have the internet on your phone, right? So using it day to day, it could be maybe you're say you're going to a streaming service, or maybe you are like using an online service for shopping, right? So, we have web applications in different forms, right? The simplest forms of of these applications are just made of HTML, made of your CSS, your JavaScript, and some sort of database, right? So back then we used to have static websites, right? So static websites basically means like it's more informational. It's more of we just have like static content. The user goes there, just reads, and you cannot really interact like more than that, right? But nowadays uh, we have a lot of dynamic web apps, right? So there's difference between website and web apps. Websites are mostly static, right? Well, web apps are mostly more interactive, more engaging, right? So these days, like, we have more dynamic web apps where the user interacts with some a web app in some way, right? So you're giving it some sort of information, you're supplying some sort of information. There is, some actions performed at the back end, and you're getting some sort of feedback, right? So some points about web applications here. There's no need to install an app. Like, you can simply just access it over the browser. Like, for example, now for this call, I don't have my Teams installed. I'm just using like my browser to interact, right? So no need for installing an app, just access it over the browser. Automatic updates. It means that any change that is made to the website, right, it's automatic, right? Unlike mobile applications where you have to like download the new version every time, right? So update your version every time. Once like some sort of update is done, like everybody like gets it, and it's very similar to the last point. Users see the same version of the web application. There's no like you're working on version one of this, you're working on another version. Maybe it was cached, yes, but once you refresh, like you should get the relevant one. So now that we understand a little bit about web apps, like, we need to talk about, vulnerabilities, we need to talk about, issues that, affect web applications, right? So, before we go, into, like, these vulnerabilities, let's understand what a vulnerability is. So a computer vulnerability basically is a flaw, right? It's a flaw that, can be exploited to gain some sort of unauthorized, access, like, to a computer system to perform some sort of unauthorized action. Right. So here we have the OWASP top 10 common web application vulnerability. OWASP is a it's an open source like organization where like they help like the general public to use simple methods, use open source methods to enhance your security, to like your to combat like vulnerabilities, and they also tell us about best practices. They don't only focus on web applications, but it's one of their like important features here. So uh, the um, we have a list here. This was in 2021. The previous one was in 2017. Right, so this is an update. Safe to say that next year, we might get a newer list. Right, so some of us here already, I'm sure we're already familiar with some of these things on the list: broken access control, cryptographic failures, injection, insecure design, security misconfiguration, vulnerability and outdated components, identification and authentication failures, software and data integrity failures, security logging and monitoring failures, and SSRF, server-side request forgery. So let me explain these vulnerabilities a little bit more in detail. So for broken access control, basically, what this means is, a user being able to carry out an action outside his or her set permissions, right? So, we like a user like being able to perform something that he or she is not able to perform, right? So, some examples of broken access control is violation of principle of least privilege. Least privilege means that as a user or as a service, like you're only given access to what you're supposed to use to perform your task, right? So if you're supposed to like just say a printing service, you should only have access to like your printing service or like the ports where you use for printing, right? So having extra access is a violation of least privilege. Another one is escalation of privilege. This is basically when a user is able to perform something outside his or oh, sorry, when a user is able to like escalate, like which means is able to gain extra privilege or improve his or her regular permissions to be able to perform something they should not be able to do. Another one is metadata manipulation, like say you steal a session cookie or you steal a JWT token. and you're able to like replay it and to do things that an authorized user is supposed to do. We've seen bypassing access control by modifying the URL. Like this was common with older websites where you when if you are a chance to see maybe the directories of the websites and you can easily just access it right without performing some sort of authentication, then IDOR insecure direct objects reference. Basically, you're a user, you have an ID. If you manipulate the ID, can you gain access to another person's account? Right. So let's move on to cryptographic failures. So basically, what this means is before we go to cryptographic failures, like let's explain what cryptography is. Basically, cryptography means like it's the process of changing clear text into some sort of ciphertext using a key, right? So you can only change the ciphertext back to the clear text with that key. Like if you don't have that key, then you cannot change it. So cryptographic failures, it was formerly known as sensitive data exposure. This means there is absence. Is there an absence of cryptography or is it failing in some way? Right. So the questions you ask is data being transmitted in clear text, right? If you use protocols like HTTP, FTP, it's for sure that the data is being transferred in clear text and they are susceptible to man-in-the-middle attack, right? You see some websites where you see HTTP and it shows insecure. The browser already tells you it's insecure. On that type of websites, if it's say it's a shopping website or something, a man-in-the-middle attack can capture like the packets, right, and understand what's going on in there. So even if you have encryption, it's is it weak or is it old? If you employ some old encryptions, you're still at risk of being compromised because now we have very strong computational capabilities. Right? It's quantum computing and some very strong GPUs that you can use to hack like weak encryption. Right. So another one is injection. Right. So injection basically means or refers to like inputting malicious code into like a web server, right? So, inputting or injecting some sort of malicious code into a web server so that it can do what is unintended to do. We have some examples, SQL injection. This is the server-side vulnerability where some sort of SQL query is being crafted, right? It's been crafted and you're querying the database in ways that you should not, right? So we also have command injection, right? You're able to run commands that you're not supposed to run. Yeah, and we have cross-site scripting. That's basically this is a client-side vulnerability where like but the malicious code is injected right into the website and some sort of action is being carried out on the client side, right? So basically like with most of these injections or if not all of them, there's some sort of like injecting into maybe a form, like the dynamic websites like they get input, right? So when the user is supplying inputs, they have the ability to supply like malicious inputs, right? So the next one is insecure design. Basically, when we have like a web app, it's made of different components, right? So it's important to like employ threat modeling, like meaning that you're decoupling the components, like right, and you're seeing how each part interacts with the other, like how when you decouple it, like how can a vulnerability affect like this particular component and how does it affect this particular component, like in relation to everything as a whole, right? So a popular model is Stride. I think this was created by Microsoft, so some workers of Microsoft, right? So it's spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, DOS, denial of service, and escalation of privilege. All right, so Yeah, so we have other vulnerabilities, but let me do this in between. Let me start. I want to do the demo, right? But it's going to take time for some things to install. So let me just start running it. I would explain more in depth like very soon. But let me start running some scripts. Yes, I want to start installing. For the demo, I'm going to use Wazuh. Like I'm using an all-in-one installation assistant script, right? Right, I'm going to install it on one component, right, on one server. I can install all the Wazuh components on one server. Then I'll install the vulnerable web application on another endpoint and install the Wazuh agents to monitor the endpoint. So let me just start running it like in the background because it's going to take some time. Yeah, so I'll explain like more in depth very soon. So for the vulnerable web application, I'm using DVWA, right? So they also have a script where you can just install everything as an onliner. This is the check. Right? So these machines are clean. I just installed them. There's nothing much on them. Yeah, I just installed them and I updated the repository. And I want one last endpoint for um to install Hydra, right? So I just want to do a little bit of brute forcing. So um, I want one moment, please. Okay, so let's see. I just want to be sure that Hydra, this. Okay, all right. So let them run in the background. This script is going to install like Wazuh central components. This is going to install DVWA and we have Hydra also running. Right, so let me go back to the talk. All right, so yeah, so for the security for the next vulnerability, that's security misconfiguration. Just like the word says, misconfiguration is basically not installing um or it's not installing like maybe software properly or not misconfiguring basically. Yeah. So um examples of this basically let me give you an unrelated example. Say you have you have a mansion and it's proper defense, like the fences are high, the gates are like very strong and all of that. But if you don't lock the gates properly, someone can easily just open it and walk it right in, even though you have like the best security. Right. So this is very important also, and it's a common mistake, right? So we have an example of this is out of date software. Right? So using out of date software, like this can introduce vulnerability, like using default passwords or accounts, keeping passwords in configuration files and unused services or features being installed. Uh, Let me talk about this a little bit. The unused services or features being installed. So basically, you can have a system, right? But ideally, best practice is that, let your system do exactly what it's supposed to do. If you have some things that are on the endpoints that, are necessary, right? We should, remove them. Uh, Previously, RDP used to be, enabled by default on Windows endpoints, right? So, having an RDP enabled, someone can just remote access into your endpoints. Or this is a very recent example of possibility. So this happened about 2 months ago. Cops is a service, is a printing service that has been on Linux endpoints for the past, maybe the past 20 years, right? How many people use Linux to print? Not so much, right? So why is it needed on that endpoint? So it was discovered that there was some sort of RC, some sort of remote code execution that allowed people to gain access to the endpoints. Another one is vulnerable and outdated components. Basically, like when security changes every time, because something is secure right now doesn't mean it's going to be secure the next 1 year or the next 2 years, right? So it's good practice to not install an old an old software. Like it's good practice to always like use like the latest, right? And lack of vulnerability management. So, when you have an environment, you have several things installed or several things set up, you need some sort of test, some sort of check to see that, okay, is that a vulnerability or is this endpoint or this component likely to be vulnerable? So you need some sort of overview, right? Like check. Um, Another one is identification and authentication failures. Right? So basically, the use of weak passwords, like using weak passwords, lack of rate limiting or forms. Say you have some sort of entry, right? Is there a limit to how many times like someone can try it in a certain period of time? If not, someone can just keep brute forcing and brute forcing and brute forcing. Yeah. So another one is lack of MFA mechanisms. Like these days, we've seen that passwords are not as reliable as they used to be. Like now we have stronger computation, right? So someone that has like a very good GPU can just start like cracking on your password, right? So MFAs are like multi-factor authentication. This basically is like a means to further secure your system and deter like attackers, right? So you can maybe like send a message to an email or use your like Google or some sort of authenticator app, right? Things like that. Also, next one is software and data integrity failures, right? So you have like a system, right? You have a web app. Say for example, you have WordPress, right? Where you're installing your plugins from. Are you sure that this vendor or this source is legit, right? Does it compromise the rest of your system? It's really good to have some sort of integrity check, right? We had something some years ago, SolarWinds, like they had malicious code inserted in them, and they were selling this to customers. Right. So let me quickly check our installation. So okay, I just enter this for DBWA. And that should be that's with this. Right. So I just installed. Yeah, so this will take a little bit of time. Right, so let's go back. Yeah, so the next one is security logging and monitoring failures. Right, so it's we have a web app, like it's good practice to have some sort of security monitoring solution. Right, we have a proxy or have a WAF, a web application firewall, or connect your web application to a SIM. Right, so you need some sort of security monitoring to deter bad actors, right? So insufficient logging is another example of this vulnerability. Logging helps for forensic purposes, right? It helps for detecting detecting threats that might exist or that might be occurring, right? So when you have insufficient logging or you don't have logging at all, right? Or you're not logging the right things, don't see the traces of malicious activities occurring in your system. So the last one is server-side request forgery. So what this means is that some web application these days they take some sort of information from like a remote source, like it's pulling data maybe from an API or something else. Right? So we need to validate like the URL validates that it's not pulling from the malicious source. Okay, so now that we understand some of these vulnerabilities, the next thing is, the best practices, right? So one thing to note is that a lot of these vulnerabilities I mentioned earlier, they are because of malicious inputs being supplied to the web app. right? So that's why implicit validation is very important. Like the data that is being supplied to that application has to be vetted, it has to be validated to to be sure that it's not malicious or nothing bad is going on with it, right? So use of strong encryption, this is a very good way to deter man in the middle attacks, right? So um it's a like for example, I mentioned earlier, I talked about the web servers, right? Yeah, like having your HTTPS, that way, that data is not being stolen and being understood, right? And number three, number four, the use of security monitoring solutions, basically use your WAF to block attacks, right? So properly log the events that are being generated by the web application. Number five, regular updates and patches, right? So um, as I mentioned earlier, there's a secure now doesn't mean to be secure later on, right? So you should always check and ensure that you're always using the latest versions or using good patches. Yeah. So last one is secure coding, right? So baking security into code from the very beginning is important, right? You're not leaving credentials in files. You're using key stores. You're not repeating yourself multiple times. All those things. Right? So generally, secure coding helps in reducing vulnerabilities. So the next part of the talk is introduction to Wazuh. So for people that don't already know what Wazuh is, Wazuh is an open source security platform, right, that unifies SIEM and XDR capabilities. So you might be wondering what is SIEM, what is an XDR, right? Take for example, you have an infrastructure with many endpoints or many things connected, right? So, you need some sort of general overview, right? So you need some sort of view of all the actions or the activities that are happening on the endpoints, right? Because this is good for security. Like you need to see, okay, what action was performed here and what action was performed there. Then it helps you to understand the general posture of the security, general security posture of your environment, right? So what SIEM does is SIEM basically aggregates logs from different sources, right? So you have different sources and you just plug them into a SIEM. So a SIEM is just aggregating and it's collecting logs. Um, in the past, SIEMs were just that, but these days they've grown more to perform more actions, right? So another one is the XDR. So extended detection and response. So what this means is that you have your logs, right? So we want to find threats on this endpoint. So what an XDR does is it helps you to identify threats. It helps you to detect them. It helps you to respond to them. So that response is a very strong capability, a strong aspect of an XDR. So what Wazuh does is it provides protections for on-premises and cloud workloads. Right? It's not just your laptops, it's not just your computers. If you have services running in the cloud, if you have endpoints running in the clouds, you can pull them into Wazuh. Right? So you can have we have different services running in the cloud. You can aggregate them into Wazuh. It's not just your regular just your VMs or your regular monitoring of operating systems. So in general, what Wazuh does is it offers threat prevention, threat detection, and response. So oh yes, and a key the very important part of Wazuh is its open sourceness. Right? So Wazuh is an open source platform, meaning it's transparent. You can literally see everything happening. Yeah, so I was talking about the open source nature of Wazuh. So what this means is that it's transparent. Basically, you can see everything going into Wazuh. You can see the code. You can see the capabilities that have been added visibly. Right. You can even say if you think that Wazuh can be improved in some way, right? You can even request or try to or contribute to the improvements. Okay, so Wazuh use cases, right? Wazuh can be used for like several things, a lot of things actually. And the main things are, configuration assessments. This is this has to do with like hardening your endpoints, right? So, hardening your endpoints is it's a way to deter, make the endpoints harder to be compromised, right? Do you have unwanted services? Do you have unwanted say applications, like remove them, right? Malware detection. This is like one of the core, if not the most important, feature. It's SIM and XDR. So malware detection is like very very important, right? So it also has like different techniques that you can use to like detect malware on endpoints. It has threat detection rules. Right? So basically, you have this section is log data analysis, right? You're taking logs into Wazuh, it's performing some sort of analytics, and it's detecting threats. We have like a roots check module where you can find hidden processes or hidden files. Yeah, can you guys hear me clearly now? Is it good?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so we also have FIM. So FIM is file integrity monitoring. It has to deal with monitoring sensitive or critical files. This could be like a very important file. Say like some sensitive like configuration files on the endpoints. For example, if you're dealing with say credit card information, you need to like monitor that file so that like when say there's a change, right? And if it's audited, so you know that okay, this is what happened. Was this change authorized or not? Right? Who made this change? So with the FIM capability, you can monitor files, you can see who made the files. You can even monitor registry keys. Threat hunting is basically like it's proactive. Like even if you have your system and you don't have any current indication of compromise, right? How about you check to like how about you check out and know for sure? Like so when you check, then that's when you start seeing some things that were not intended to be there. Log data analysis, is that same capability where we're aggregating logs and you can analyze those logs. Vulnerability detection is important, right? Because you need to, as I said earlier, like we had something on the vulnerability management, right? So you need to know, like, have an idea of what's installed the endpoints, is it vulnerable or not, right? Incident response, responding to those threats, regulatory compliance, like, using Wazuh helps to meet several regulatory compliance, right? Companies, it would be do you need to like security monitoring, right? Do you need to have FIM installed? Right, so using Wazuh can help to meet HIPAA, you can meet NIST, you can meet GDPR, you can meet like other compliance requirements. Then IT agent, basically keeping your environment clean, where you can like see like what's being installed on the endpoints. Like we can see what's being installed on the environments, like what are the services that are running, what are the ports that are opened, what are the applications or packages that are installed. Yeah, then container security. Yes, you can monitor like Docker container runtime. Monitor like the activities that are being performed by the Docker engine on the endpoints, and posture management and cloud workload protection. This is actually these two are like related to cloud management um, and cloud workload protection. It's like CWP. Yeah, so they're like accessing your cloud environments and offering protections for your cloud environments. So let's just take a small detour. Let's check and see. So great, it has been installed. Right. So we'll get to the demo like very very soon. Okay. So what makes up Wazuh? Right. Wazuh is made up of four components. We have indexer, server, dashboard, and the agents. We'll talk about that in the next slide. So the central components, right? So we call these three the central components. These are like what makes the, should I say, the command center, right? So we have your agents installed on endpoints, right? But they have to report back somewhere, right? So central components are like they're like the heads, like those are what are in those are what performs those analytics or the intelligence. Yeah, so you have the indexer, server, and dashboard. So the server is it analyzes log data and telemetry and security telemetry collected from agents from monitored endpoints. So you have your agents, you install your agents on endpoints to monitor them. The agents collect data and send it to Wazuh server. And the server analyzes like send some sort of response back to the agents. We have data. So when the logs are collected by the agents, like alerts are being, depending on the events, depending on the actions that are being performed, alerts are being generated. Right. So now these alerts, like they are being stored in indices, right, on the Wazuh indexer. Like they're being stored so that for analytical purposes, like so that you can search, you can analyze, you can understand, you can use that data to do something else. Then the Wazuh dashboard, just as the name implies, is a dashboard for visualizing your security data, right? So you can't do everything on the command line. You need to be able to see um need to be able to see the actions that are being like performed, like to see like maybe graphical examples or graphical like visualization basically. All right, so next slide, there was agents. So talking about agents, let me go ahead. I'm going to, should I install it now? I was going to install it now, but I don't want to like lose you guys too much, right? I want you guys to like flow with me. So let me install the agent. I would have installed the agent now so that we can see some actions, because some of them takes time. It takes a bit of time for them to like show on the dashboard. But I don't want to lose you guys, so I'll just take it step by step. So your agent, right? So this agent is what is installed on monitored endpoints, right? Say you have a Windows server, right? So you have like some sort of server running, and you want to know the activities or actions that are being performed. What you do is you install the agents. So the agents is multi-platform, meaning that it works for Windows, it works for Linux, it works for macOS, it works for um, different types of operating systems. The agent is lightweight, meaning that it's not resource intensive. That you can just easily like it's lightweight. You just easily install it and it's not affecting much. Right. So the communication between agent and the server or the central components are secure, right? So it can be susceptible to an email attack. Then automatic responses to threats, right? So having that agent, like instead of waiting, you can detect, right? But do you have to wait for the security engineer to come and manually perform actions on that endpoint? So using the agents, it was the agents, like you can respond to these threats automatically. All right. So Wazuh comes in different options. Basically, Wazuh is free. Wazuh is free to use anything right now. You can install Wazuh and start using it, and there's no charge, right? So Wazuh is free to use. You can install Wazuh on premises. Yeah. Basically, it's you can just deploy it locally. It's very flexible. But when you talk about Wazuh Cloud, then there is some sort of attached to Wazuh Cloud. Basically, it's being hosted in the cloud environment, and cloud environment it's basically pay as you use. So if you don't want to bother about installation, you don't want to bother about um, like having anything to do with the infrastructure, you just want everything managed and maintained by Wazuh, then there's sort of charge, but you're not using this platform or you're not using any special support, then Wazuh is free and open source. And so we have one of the largest open source communities in the world. We have a lot of users on Slack, on Google, on Reddit, on Discord. So what this means is that as a user, right, like you can have questions. Maybe you're trying to install something and you don't really understand. Like you can go to these channels and ask fellow users or ask the developers or ask other people using Wazuh, and there it's you can get some of your questions resolved, right? So Wazuh has like over 30 million yearly downloads. It's 100. It's used by 100,000 enterprise users. All right. So now to the demo part, we want to basically do a demo where like we have a Google web application and we perform some sort of attack, and we see how it's been detected by Wazuh, and we see how some sort of response is being carried out. So for my demo, I'm just using this. I'm installing my central components on one machine. It's an Amazon Linux machine, and set requirements: 2 CPU cores, 6 GB RAM, 40 gig storage, and for the web server, like I'm using these requirements. All right. So there's also a third endpoint. I didn't write it there. It's just doing one thing. All right, so before we come here, let's make sure that we install everything correctly. All right, so I'm using Wazuh documentation. Uh, I feel like the documentation is one of the very interesting things about Wazuh, because it explains how to set up Wazuh, how to use Wazuh in a very direct, simple language, in a very easy to use approach. Right. So coming to the documentation, you can see getting started, see the different components, understand how it works, the different installation. We have this different installation of things depending on your use case. You just want to already installed, just get the OVA. We have Docker, we have Kubernetes. If you want to install Wazuh, in a cluster form, we can use these guides. If you want to understand about the different components, if you want your POC, you understand how Wazuh works, you can come to the documentation. Right. So in our case, I really have this open. All right. So in our case, I used the script. So you have yeah, these are like some requirements, right? Some hardware requirements, depending on how many agents or how many endpoints you want to monitor, right? So yeah, so I use this to install Wazuh. So what this script does is install the Wazuh solution assistant. So basically, if you don't want to bother about all the intricacies, you just want to install Wazuh, right? You can just come here, copy the script, and install it on points you're trying to monitor. Sorry, the endpoints you're trying to install Wazuh on. So yeah, let's go to the terminal now. So right, I have Wazuh installed. It's fine. I know you guys can see the password, but I'm running it for demo purposes. Right. So let me save, because I don't want to lose this password. Let me save it to a file. So let me just put it here. Right. So this is the password to the Wazuh dashboard. Right. So let's check the IP address. So I'm running Wazuh on this IP address. So HTTPS. Right. So no need to worry so much about this, because it's using a self-signed certificate. That's why the browser is marking it as unsecure. Or you can also configure your own certificates. So I mentioned the password. Just going to take a minute. All right, so yeah, now we have Wazuh. We have like different dashboards for different things. We have the different sections. If you want to you know deal with rules, you just deal with folders and some other things like you have them on the dashboard, right? So the dashboard is like a quick way to do some things. Personally, I prefer like just using one time, or the dashboard is just like a very good way to just quickly access or do what you need to do. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to install an agent on the web server endpoint. So as I said earlier, like we have the endpoints that hosts Wazuh, where we just installed Wazuh. We have one that hosts the vulnerable web application. So let's see that this is running fine. Right, so this is running fine. And so I want to install an agent on the um, endpoints hosting the application. Right, so it's an endpoint. So using this architecture, we're going to use the IP address of the server. That's just what we have here. This is telling the agent that like this is where you report back to. Right, so the agents, I'm going to call it web server to Ubuntu. Right, so now that's all. Basically, you can just copy the command. All you have to do is just copy the command and run it on the endpoints. The other way to install, Wazuh and the agents, you can just download the binary and you can download the binary and like install it also. But for me, I think this is the most straightforward way. So just come on the dashboard, like input where you're supposed to like the necessary information, copy the command and the website endpoints. All right. So let me switch to the user. So yeah, I'm already to the user here. Okay, it's just going to take a moment. All right, so the agent has been installed. What we need to do is we need to make sure that it's these commands are to make sure that after it restarts, yeah, the agent like automatically turn on, like it starts the agents. All right, so all right, so that's done. So let's check and see. All right, so you see like a new agent has popped up. This is the agents that we just installed. So as you said about Ubuntu. I'm saying never connected. It's because we just installed this. So we have to do here is refresh. I'll give it a moment then refresh, and because it's now active, right? So if we click on agents, we can see like several things related to that endpoint, right? We can see that this is the IP address, this is version was installed, this is the operating system, right? You can see interesting things really. Like I can come to the country data and give me an idea of the things that are installed on the endpoints. Let's see if I check here. Let's check for Apache. Let's see if we find it. Um, okay, I'm seeing it right now. I think it takes a moment sometimes. Okay, so in the meantime, okay, see Apache runtime. It's okay. So in the meantime, um, we can see other things, right? Earlier I talked about SCA, right? So we can check the SCA like this. We have like an SCA module. So this is basically like tells us that okay, these are the things that we're doing wrong on the endpoints. Like you need to like change this, you need to set that so that you can harden your system, right? So Let's go further into the demo. So then we have this section. It's called the threat detection. Yeah, I talked about vulnerabilities earlier. We can also see vulnerability, but we won't be able to see right now. It should take some time. It usually takes some time. Let's see. Okay, yes, the scan has worked already. Right. So here we can see the vulnerabilities that exist that currently exist on that endpoint. Like this is a lot, like this is not good, but I see the vulnerability, you can see the severity, you can see like okay, which particular package do we have that we need to deal with. Right. So coming here, try to uh, this basically is on that particular endpoint that you just installed. This is where you see like the actions or the things that have been carried out on that endpoint. So Wazuh has out of the box it has out of the box detection rules where you can like already see like some activities by default, right? But if you have special use cases or you have like a special need, right? You can also create your custom rule. We'll do that on this demo also. And so what I want us to do now is I want us to first of all, like let's brute force the endpoints, the SSH of the endpoints hosting the web server. So it's important that it's not just the web server you're protecting, even the endpoints, like when you're hosting that web server is also important to monitor so that malicious things are not happening. So what we do now is let's use Hydra.
Hi, Francis. Sorry, I don't know if it's from my end. I could barely hear you. I don't know if it's from my end.
Okay. Okay, let me disconnect and do that again. I'm not sure why that's happening. But again,
Yeah, I'm not sure. Probably the headphone. I don't know. Maybe we try it without the headphone and see if it will be better.
let me connect again. Let's see. Okay. What about now, please? Can you hear me now? Is it better?
It's just a bit muffled, just a bit. It's not as if we cannot hear. We can
So
hear
you need
you,
to.
but it's kind of muffled.
Okay. Maybe let me try without the headphones. Let me try without the
Okay.
headphones. Okay. So can you guys hear me now? Is it good?
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
better
it's better
actually.
now.
Am I audible? Is that? Am I
Yeah,
audible?
yeah, you're good to go.
This is better. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So that I can hear you guys. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, let's do our small demo. So I just have like some quick and simple examples that to show most of these things that I already talked about. So here, let's brute force the SSH of the endpoint. So we're using Hydra, right? So let's use a user that doesn't exist. Let's say attacker, right? So oh, before that, let me create like a small password list, right? So nano, right? So I'm just going to write things that don't really make sense. I'm just trying to fill it up. Yeah. Okay. Um. Yeah. So I'm just trying to basically just fill it up. Yeah. All right. So yeah. So using Hydra, let's just brute force the so I used attacker earlier. Right. So yeah. So now I need the IP address of the web application. Right. So Okay, so right, so the protocol that's SSH. So let's run it and see. And this should not work, right? So I've seen that it has failed, right? Um, I can't see like we didn't get any valid password because the information we supplied was wrong, right? So let's check Wazuh now and let's see if like we have anything. Right, so now I just refreshed the dashboard and we can see some of these actions that we performed. I can see that it says attempt to log in using non-existent user. Right, so you can come here and inspect and see more information about the action that was just performed. And I'm seeing in full log, like this is my web server, failed password for valid user attack from this IP address. I can confirm. Right, so from this endpoint, we can see that this is you know this was from that endpoint. So let's try something more. Let's use something that actually exists, a user that actually exists now. So it's a vagrant user. Like the endpoint is I installed on vagrant, so that's the vagrant user. Right, so it's failed again. So let's check. Let's give it some time. All right, so it says SSHD authentication failed. Then I can see different rules. These rules are because of the the Wazuh out of the box detection rules, right? So just by default, like Wazuh has some rules that you can use to just pick up events, right? And they are quite broad. It also tells me here it's first trying to get access to the system. When I open it, like same, like failed from that same endpoint. It's telling me that okay, someone tried multiple times to gain access to the system, the SSH of that endpoint, right? So let's try another attack. Let's try cross-site scripting. So let me log into the app now. Right, so because this is fresh, I need to just do some extra things. So please log in. Right, now the website is practically secure right now. So what I need to do is like change. Okay, it's already low. Okay, it's already on low. Right, so it shows that it's hackable. If it was on impossible, it means that the website was secure. So for the demo, I just have some simple examples. Right, let's do website scripting and let's. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to get the cookie, the session cookie. Right, so I'm going to use alerts, like the most popular example for doing such. Right, so let me print, and what does it do? Like I'm not supposed to be able to do this, and I can see the session ID. I can see the cookie of the web applications. So let's check again if anything was picked. Right, so what does this say? It said a web attack returned code 200. So it means something happened and it was successful. We come and we investigate the logs again. You can see that like this was a command I just ran. It was encoded. That's why we have some of these characters. It was encoded here. So you can see the documents of cookie. Like it shows that like that was the attack I just carried out now. So let's try one more. Let's try SQL injection. So right, so let's see here. Right, so like what this command does is basically like querying the database and returning like information of the users in the database. So this is not supposed to happen. Right, so let's check once again and let's see. I can reduce the time frame a little bit. So I've clicked on this several times and it doesn't seem to work. Why doesn't it work? It's because there's no detection rule for this particular action that I just carried out. So in cases like that, right, what I can do now is I can proceed to writing some sort of custom rule so that this action that I just performed now, right, I can like we can see it here. So what we have to do now is on server management. I'm coming to rules. So what this means is like I'm coming to view the rules. So yeah, like there are many rules depending on what you're trying to do. There are many rules for different things here. So what I want to do now is I just want to I want to customize it a little bit. And so now what I did here is like we have a custom rules file. So in that custom rules file, I want to include my new rule. If I want, I can create a new rule, or let's just add it to the custom rules file. All right. So now what we want to do now is we want to write our simple rule to capture the activity that just happened, right? So there's a syntax for this. When writing rules, if you want to understand more about using the rule sets, you can come to the user manual. You can come to data analysis. So this basically talks about log collection, the log decoding, rules matching, and alert visualization. So first of all, you collect the logs, right? There's some sort of analytics that is performed on the logs, right? And we have rules that match that. Okay, when this type of events occurs, okay, mark it as mark it as some sort of action and create an alert for it. Another thing is you can have your alerts on your dashboard, or you can also have your alerts being sent somewhere. So yeah, for the rules, we're creating a rule now. So um group, your rules always have to be in a group, right? So all right, so now there's something I'm going to use now. I'm going to use, it's called an if SID. Let me explain what that means. If so, for more more knowledge on using the rules, you can come here. We have a syntax rule set, XML syntax here, and then the rules are written in XML in a much later version of us. So the rules are going to change, and it's going to be written in YAML for easier usage. Right? So you have I came to data analysis rule sets XML syntax. So here you can see I can understand several these options, like how to use them in a row. So here I'm using if SID. Basically what if SID means is that I need a rule to have triggered already for this rule to work. So let's test. Oh, something I forgot to mention here. Apologies for that. We can see the rules. Like, how did we see? Let's go back so it makes more sense. Yeah. How do we see? We just installed the agent and see we're already seeing this. Well, I mentioned that was a sim, meaning that it collects logs. So how is it collecting logs? How is this automatic, right? So an important thing to notice is that the DVWA, it works on runs on Apache, right? So Apache stores logs in this directory, log, right? So Apache, right? So it stores its logs in this directory, right? So here we can see those actions that are occurring when I was entering commands, when I was browsing to different pages, we could see the yeah. So for example now, this was that last command I ran, the one with the like the one with the SQL injection, right? So what we can do, like when you want to deal with new rules or different new scenarios, what you do is you configure Wazuh tool. monitor that log file. But why is it still working? So why it's working is because the the web app or the Apache was already installed before I installed the agents, right? If I had installed the agents first, it wouldn't have worked. So Wazuh has this very nice capability where, like, if you already have the service running, right, you can, and you install the agent automatically like just starts monitoring those some of those services, right? So the agent configuration file is here. It's in, well, it's var osec etc osec.conf, right? So this is like the agent's configuration file. If I scroll down, let's just find it here, access.log, right? So because I already had, Apache installed, it automatically just picked up, like, automatically just started monitoring, like, those files. So see, my error log is monitored, my access .log is monitored, right? So that's why we can see it. So for writing rules, we need the logs, like the logs. It's everything is logs. Um, so let's see. So what I want to do now is let's test. It's so I don't go. I'm not opening and closing the tab. So let's have another one opened. All right. So yeah, I'm going to use this one to write my rules. Yeah. So first of all, what I would want to do is I want to test the log. I want to see like what happens when I input, like, when I, like, use that log, like what happens. So I test it and I see that another role like has already picked this log, right? This rule is 31100, but it's not showing. I don't see it on the dashboard because it has an alert level of 0. So when you have alert level of 0, it means that you silence the alert. Like, don't show it on the dashboard. If it was higher, if it was like over 3, like it's from 0 to 2, or uh, let me confirm. Let's confirm. Let's see. Alert management. Yes. So by default, only triggers alerts with the severity of 3 and higher. So what it means is that like anything less than 3, like we don't see it on the dashboard. Yeah. All right. So okay, let's come back. Let's come back here. So I see that it has already been picked, like, by default here. So let's write our rule. Let's just be a little bit lazy and let's just use this one. So let me remove everything in here. Okay, so when you have your rules, like, the important thing is to take note of these fields. All right, so you need your rules to always be in a group. Right, so in this case, I'm going to call it SQL injection. Right, so yeah, so when you have your group, right, inside the group now you have your rule. So let me use this. We already have 10001. So let me use 1002. The level means that this is the level that's you know in different severities. The severity basically, like how important, or how, like, how should that rule be treated, right? So this is SQL injection. So let me just give it 10, right? And earlier we said that the rule that was triggered. Let's check again, so track. I'm looking for the row that we used, the log that was generated the other time. Okay, this is it. All right, so let's test it again. Yeah, so it was 31100. So it means that if this rule has triggered already, yeah, then the other one will trigger. So now we need these interesting fields, right? So now when we tested that log, there were some other fields that popped up also. Yeah, so some other fields that popped up. So I can see that, I see when it was decoded, I see that, some other things were picked. Decoding basically is like, you're breaking the log into bits and you're trying to understand like the different section. What is this? What does this mean? What does this mean? Right. So I see an ID of 200. I see like a source IP and I see a URL. So for this small test, like, we're just interested in the ID. All right. I'm interested in URL. Right. Um, so ID, like if it has been successful, 200. So if it was successful, right? Then the URL. So this place is a little bit interesting. So URL. So for the URL, what do we have? It says URL www vulnerabilities da da da. So this is not very important in my opinion, because what if it was another website, right? This would not be the same, right? So what I want to get here, let me just take like that particular string, those that attack the SQL like query. It's a little bit different here because it has been encoded, so the strings are a little bit different. So what we can do is we can use regex, right? So the rules, like they use regex, so you can use regex to like pick pick out the like match the rule. So let's just do regex r. Let me paste it here. What do we do? Paste it here. So here, this is just a very simple example. Naturally, like I wouldn't just write it like this, but just for demo sake. So I'm just escaping. I just want to escape like these characters. I'm escaping the plus. Right? So you see that it matches, right? So um yeah, and regex, we're using PCR2. Yes, PCR2 is like a slightly more advanced version of regex. Like you can use it to match like many other things. So PCR2, right? So let's just cross check. Oh, and the description. So SQL injection attack. Right. So let's save it. Anytime you make changes to the configuration file, um, anytime you say you update like your role, basically when you perform some sort of configuration change, like it's always good to restart. Like it won't be applied if you do not restart. Like this is the same for the agents, it's the same for the manager. All right, so one moment. Okay, so let's test that rule again. Let's see if it works now. So I think I still have it. Okay, no. Let's copy it again. All right, so let's test it. And yeah, so you see now, you see that this has changed. So basically, that's told me that so what I'm doing is I'm testing the rules. Like this tool is like to test the rules here. So I've tested it again. I've tested that log, and now I've seen that it has picked it up. So I'm saying, okay, this is this ID that we created. This is the level. This is the description, right? So yeah, that's good. Let's check here. Now nothing's going to happen, but let's do that attack again. Let's try it again. So it's here. It's gonna clear the page. So it's here. So submit it. Right. So Let me just do it one more time. All right, so let's check. It's not popping up yet. Okay, so now, yeah. Yes, can say SQL injection attack. Right. So this is the new rule that we just created. Like see the ID, like you can investigate and see okay, it's doing what it's supposed to do. All right. So I've talked about the the detection aspect of Wazuh. So we've seen that we have custom we have out of the box rules that can detect events by default. So if you have a special use case, you can also create like a custom rule set. Okay, so let's carry on. So the next thing is response. Okay, so these are just images of yeah. The next thing is response, right? So Wazuh has a model. It's called the active response model. So what this active response model does is that it helps to automatically respond to threats, just as the name says. When we have certain actions like performed, right? So like using the active response model, you can automatically respond to the threats. Basically, you don't have to wait for an engineer. Like, okay, and a bad thing has happened, but you don't have to wait for them to come and manually like remediate or attend to the issue. So you can have scripts that do these things. So let's go to um, user manual. Let's go to capabilities. Let's go to active response. So basically, capabilities like just as the name says, like this is like those capabilities that Wazuh can help with. We have several things here. So we're interested in the active response. All right. So what we're going to do now is active response can states, okay, it says here it can be stateless or stateful. Stateless means like it's just a one-time action. Just the definition is even here, just a one-time action. While stateful means that it can execute that action for a period of time. So do you want to do something once, or do you want to linger for some time? Okay, so I'm not going to go to the intricacies of configuring the active response, but I'm just going to do like a quick just a quick, a quick walkthrough. So for the active response, like you need two things, two essential things. You need the command block and you need the active response block, right? So this command block, basically what this is it's the script, like this executable, this field here, this is the script itself, right? This is what is that's the script is referencing that script itself, right? It's that is performing that action. So by default, Wazuh comes with some out of the box scripts. So let's check. So this the var.osec, that's like the base of when you install Wazuh, like this is the working directory. Right. So I see active response in here. Right. So active response bin. So here I can see some scripts that come by default. Right. So now I'm interested in the what I want to do for this second demo is I just want to we did an SSH attack, or we put false attack on SSH earlier, so I want to block that attack so that when next someone is trying such the person when it does not that SSH, it just automatically cuts off network access to that endpoint. So um we have the command block, we have the active response block. Let's go to Wazuh again and see. Right, so I'm coming here, I'm coming to settings, right, I'm coming to edit configuration. This configuration for everything here. I can access it command line also, right, so this is more straightforward. So if you come here, you see, um, yeah, you see it says active response here. So I can see some commands already here by default. So those things are those commands I showed earlier. So they're already here. These are the ones that come by default, right? So what I can do is I already have the command block here, but what I want to do now is I want to say, I want to tell Wazuh that, okay, I want you to use this command or use this script in a certain way. So I come here, I say, let me copy this example here. Come here and let's include it also. I'm big on this indentation, right? So for our own case, we want to use firewall drop, right? Location local, it means on the endpoints that action is activity is happening, right? Let that script happen on that endpoint. So I'm not using the level. I want to use like a role ID. So there are different ways that you can configure the active response to work. So in this case, I'm telling it that when it sees a particular role ID, right, automatically trigger. So let's check earlier. Let's check for when we had some sort of brute force attack. So this is brute force trying to get access. So here it has this alert level of 10. I can use this level, but to be more specific, let's use the ID itself. So this is 5763. All right, so let's configure it. So 5763, right, and the timeout. So now this is the stateful response or active response. Is basically saying that this action should occur for so period. So in this case, it's a 1 minute, like it's in seconds. So I'm going to use 1 minute. We have to save. Let's check that everything is correct. We have to restart. As I mentioned earlier, like you have to restart to apply configurations. I guess it will me. Are you guys flowing?
Yes, we are with you.
Okay. So just take about a minute. All right, so that's done. Yeah, so that's done. Let's just refresh. Okay, good. So let's reinitiate that SSH attack as it taken. So oh, 1 moment. I wanted to prove that we could access it. I think I already initiated it. The active response might have worked. Well, let's check. Let's check. The thing, the web server is 100 192.168.6.100. Okay, let's just copy it.
Hi, Francis.
All right.
Hello,
Yes.
Francis. Well done. We have like 10 minutes more before the questions and answers. So please,
Yeah.
thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, we'll make it. We'll make it. Yes. We'll
All
listen
right.
to the end. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So let's check. Yeah, I think the active response. Okay. I can ping the machine now. So let's do the brute force attack again. All right, so let's try and ping the endpoint again. And you guys can notice that I can't ping the endpoint again. I could ping it earlier. I did the brute force attack, and now I can't ping it again. So we configured it to block for 1 minute. So let's check the dashboard. Let's see if some sort of something was captured. Right. So yeah, again we can see the the attack, the brute force attack, and now we've seen a new alert which is saying host blocked by firewall drop active response. So basically the active response, like, we created as, kicked in, right? So, in this way, like, we're stopping a brute force attack, right? So instead of the endpoints, or sorry, instead of the attacker being able to just, repeatedly, try and break into SSH, like, we can, block it. So let's give it 1 minute, and it should reverse back. So 1 minute. So we can, let's see. Oh, okay. So you see that, like, it has started happening again, so that we can ping it again. So let's refresh, and you see that it says host unblocked by firewall drop active response. So this basically means, like, we configure it to work for 1 minute to stop that endpoint from being accessed for 1 minute, and now we can ping it again. So in conclusion, from the little examples that I've shown, if we dig deeper, I'm sure there are, like, more examples, but from little examples, I see that Wazuh can help, like, against this OWASP vulnerabilities. It can help, like, detect, or even protect against injection attacks. The SCE model can help, like, note security misconfigurations. We can use the vulnerability detector model to you know see what's components is vulnerable, so we can take care of security logging and monitoring, like, by using Wazuh. So why is Wazuh the right choice? It's comprehensive. In my opinion, my personal opinion, I think it's pretty straightforward. It is easy to to use. It's enterprise ready. You can have Wazuh to monitor your endpoints. So I talked about the agents earlier. Even for endpoints that do not support the installation of software, you can use the agentless monitoring capability of Wazuh. So basically, so you can use your syslog to send events to the to Wazuh and still monitor it as normal. It can it's flexible, scalable, it's open source, it's transparent, it's simple, lightweight agents, and it's used by, like, many big companies, no vendor lock-in and no license costs. I think I like this part, so because you use Wazuh, it doesn't stop you from like using other types of solutions for other things, right? There's sometimes when you're using some sort of application, and it just keys you into the application. You can't really, like, diversify. But Wazuh is, like, it's flexible, right? You can use other things. You can even, like, integrate Wazuh with other tools, other security tools. Using the community, you can talk to the vendors, you can talk to developers, and it helps you to be compliant with regulatory compliance standards. Yeah. So yeah, so that's it. And questions. Yeah, questions. So that's it
Hey,
about the
finally.
presentation. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you
Well,
so
hope I
much.
didn't bore you guys.
Thank you so much
Yeah.
for that insightful session we just had with you. We're so grateful. Okay, let's quickly take questions. I hope you're ready for their sizzling hot and burning questions. Okay. So I have some questions here in the chat box. Uh I'll start
Okay.
from this person that said okay. Okay. It said you're using Linux on WSL. So what about people using VirtualBox with a stagnant IP? Can they still set this up? And is this program mostly GUI?
No. So let's check the documentation, right? So I'm using I'm actually using VirtualBox also. Like, say, I'm running Vagrant on VirtualBox, right? So yes, you can install Wazuh on a lot of things, really. Like, see here. So if you want just like the OVA, you want Wazuh just be configured. You just want everything, like, boxed in, and just plug and play, like installing it on your VirtualBox, on your VMware, or you can just use the OVA. if you want like to install Wazuh, you can do like a Docker deployment, right? Where like instead of using like a VM, like Wazuh is running in Docker. If you want to install Wazuh in Kubernetes, if you want to install Wazuh with Ansible or with Puppet, you can do that here. So it's not limited to this use case that I showed. Yeah, so this is like the most direct approach.
Okay, thank you. There's another one that says, are the rules configurable to suit an environment or scenario?
I didn't get that, sorry. Can you come again?
Are the rules configurable to suit an environment or scenario?
Yes, 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 yes. Very, very much. You know, we did like a practical example here, and when I was working on initially, like we saw that that rule that these logs did not trigger they didn't trigger an alert. Like we saw some actions that were triggered out of the box, right? But we also saw that like the rules did not pick up everything. So depending on your use case, it can be anything actually. Like all you have to do is just create your custom rules or create your custom decoders. Yeah, so yeah, it's applicable to any scenario actually.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, I have another one that states, I successfully install Wazuh on Kali Linux, but it seems not to install on Parrot OS. Any ideas on fixing it? She said she also believes it can
Yeah.
also be run via Docker, but aside that, any other step she can try?
Yes. So I think ideally you should be able to install on Kali, you should be able to install on Parrot, but ideally, those type of operating systems are not. Let me use the word ideal for such types of scenarios. They're mostly like for like some sort of offensive or attacking scenario, right? But yes, you can install it on those. Yeah, but I'll just say ideally, like not the best operating system for such.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm seeing another interesting one. Um, This person said, while you were discussing web security best practices, the third point stood out for them. They said, how do you assess the effectiveness of WAFs in today's threat landscape? And what complementary security measures would you recommend to enhance their performance?
Okay, so what's the third on this? Let's check. Okay, so just as we as we were performing some of these attacks, right? If we had say a WAF, right? A WAF or say some other like security monitoring solution by default, like these things are supposed to stop you from being able to carry some sort of action in the first place, right? So having those things installed by default kind of deters, an attacker. Like, you wouldn't be able to, perform some sort of, you won't have access as much as we do to like, carrying out some sort of this type of actions, right? So having a WAF or having a security monitoring solution, it can be a proxy, it can be a WAF, it can be a SIM or an XDR in our case, right? It deters, attackers, right? So when you have a web application, don't just install it and leave it there. You need to add some extra features, add some security layers, so that people are not even able to carry out such activities in the first place. When they see that you're trying to do this, it automatically just blocks it or cuts off access.
Okay, thank you so much, Francis. This person says, for the CVE, how do I remediate or make the server 100% or close to with breaking the system? Or is it without, maybe the person meant without breaking the system or something?
Okay, for
But they were
CVs,
asking about CVE remediation.
yes. So let's check. Let's look at it here. So yeah, so basically I think this is a more uh um should I say reactive? I think this is reactive, right? So, for example, if I see that I have CVs and it's telling me now that this is critical, so it's left for you as the sysadmin or system engineer to investigate. So what Wazuh does is like it tells you that, oh, okay, this package is here, this package is vulnerable, and see the severity is critical. So as a security person, like what you're supposed to do is like investigate more, understand like what vulnerability is this, like okay, do I need to have that on my do I need this package on my endpoints? If not, like I remove it. Is the package is it outdated? If not, I need to update it. So CVs are more finding vulnerabilities on the system is more it's after you've seen them, it's now like left for you, right? To understand what those vulnerabilities are more, and taking like the right actions to protecting against them.
All right, thank you. There's another one quickly. Is there a way to configure Wazuh into the CI/CD pipeline for white box text testing? Like, I think the person wants to write sync or something, SNYK or SonarCube, especially for DevSecOps, since it can also be deployed on the cloud.
Is there a way? I would say ideally, I'll say yes. Have we done it yet? We tend to write technical posts, technical documentations on how you can use Wazuh. Have we done it yet? Maybe not, right? But are we exploring it? Yes. Like, I even have a teammate that, was talking about, working on CI/CD platform. In the past, we've not really looked into it, but now, like, it's something that we are looking into. And as I said earlier, like Wazuh is very flexible. You can integrate many things. I think that's one thing I love about Wazuh. You can integrate many things into Wazuh. So yes, like is it possible? Yes, I think it's possible.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Francis. Let me check for a few more because I wouldn't want anyone to come for my head later at this night. Okay, found one. This person is saying they noticed the IP address of the Wazuh server is a private IP. In the context of this demo, does that mean the server and the agents have to be on the same IP range for this to work? They also went
Yes.
on to Okay, they also went on to say that they've had Wazuh server installed, but the installation only uses loopback IP. So now they're having difficulties editing Wazuh server IP to use the IP designated to their machine by their ISP.
Okay, so I didn't get the last part. The IP uses only what, or the server uses only what, sorry.
Come on, let me find it again.
Mhm.
Yeah, loopback IP. Loopback, like loop back.
I don't think you're supposed to use your loopback IP address like when like installing Wazuh. So yes, like in my case, for the demo sake, I installed Wazuh locally. So everything I've done here is on my local endpoints. The server is on my endpoints, the agents or the web server is on my endpoints. The other attacker endpoints is on my computer, I mean, right? So in for this case of this demo, it's local. Can we install Wazuh on a private IP address? I'm sorry, on a public IP address? Yes, you can. So it's just for the case of this, like we're installing it locally, right? But if I wanted to be able to access my Wazuh like publicly, I can just install my Wazuh in the cloud, like and use the private IP address to access that machine, or I could install it locally but expose my system like to the internet.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me find one more. Okay. Uh, Assuming an organization approach and said they have heard of Wazuh and its capabilities, but they need to set up something for proactive monitoring and vulnerability management. Since Wazuh can show me details of vulnerabilities and the severity plus other information, would that be sufficient or should they also recommend a vulnerability management tool?
I don't think you need a vulnerability management tool. Was already like, so how the vulnerability detector or the vulnerability detector model or vulnerability detection like works on Wazuh is that it looks at the packages, like it looks at the applications that are installed on your on your endpoint, right? Then it now checks the packages and cross-references them with external uh vulnerability databases to see like to see like okay, this particular version of this particular tool, like is it is it vulnerable, is it not to be vulnerable, right? And even now we have like a CTI. So what the CTI does is that um, the CTI pulls or it aggregates like vulnerability data from different sources, right? And it's aggregates everything into one. Then Wazuh pulls from the CTI. So do you need another vulnerability management tool? Like when you have Wazuh, I don't think you need that. Like it's basically just accesses like what you have on your endpoints and tells you is it vulnerable or not.
All right. We have 4 more minutes to the end of the question and answer session. So if you have more questions, please drop in the chat box. So I'm going to um, read out another. Can WASO stand as an IPS and IDS on an enterprise level?
I would say Wazuh is an IPS. It can do both actually, but as I showed here, Wazuh can detect. Like if you see what I talked about, like in the slides. Let's see, where is it? Wazuh can detect, it can prevent, and it can respond. So it can do everything that an IPS and an IDS can do. Let's see. So yeah, it offers threat prevention, detection, and response. Yeah, so it can do both.
Okay, thank you so much. One last question. Can we ask? Okay. How does WASO integrate with other security tools in a typical SOC setup?
So Wazuh can integrate with many, 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 many security solutions. How does it integrate? It can integrate using different methods, really. Okay, so let's see, like for example, let's check, here. User manual, capability, malware detection. Yeah, let's see malware detection first. So for example, say we can integrate Wazuh with VirusTotal. Right? VirusTotal is a online platform that it's a database for IOCs. Right? So you can integrate Wazuh. So Wazuh can be integrated with different methods actually. You can um use the script. We have like an integrator module, right? Where let's check. We have an integrator module where no, not this. This is something else. Yeah, external API integration. So we have an integrator module where like you can like configure maybe the API key or the web hook, right? Plug it in, then create like okay, I want it to send alerts for this particular role ID, this particular level, for this particular group, right? So we can do this. We can integrate Wazuh with other some other security monitoring solutions that do the same similar things like Elasticsearch, OpenSearch, Splunk. You can send your Wazuh. You can write your custom scripts to integrate Wazuh. You can collect logs from these third-party solutions, process them, like do analytics. So integrating Wazuh, like the good thing about it is you can integrate it in many ways, really. Right? You can use scripts, you can collect logs, or you can push your Wazuh data to other security monitoring solutions.
Okay. What an incredible session so far. On behalf of everyone, I want to extend a big thank you to you, Francis, for the practical insights and detailed demonstrations. Your ability to break down complex topics have left us all inspired and better equipped. And I also want to thank each of you for attending and actively participating in today's workshop. Your enthusiasm to learn made the session even more engaging. before we close, let me just give like few key takeaways about Wazuh. Wazuh is an open source security monitoring and incident response platform. And as we've all learned from this session, the key features are real-time threat detection, log analysis and monitoring, vulnerability scanning, and so on and so forth. So please, even I think after this session we'll be dropping, there will definitely be a recorded version. So you can always check back to check the points or parts where you didn't get or parts where you want to watch again. You know the way learning is. So I would like to round up the program now. And don't forget to follow us on our socials at DOH Africa, Facebook, Twitter, DOH Africa, sorry, X, DOH Africa, Instagram, DOH Africa, LinkedIn, DOH Africa. Also, there's a feedback form that's in the chat box here. Let me see. Yes, it's in the chat box. Please kindly take a moment to fill the feedback form for the session. And thank you so much for joining and sticking it to the end with us. Also, don't forget to listen to our podcast, Siren. But Francis, do you know about our podcast?
No, I'm just hearing about it now.
Oh my God, really? All right, fine. You're
All right,
forgiven.
I'll check it out. Yeah, I'll check it out.
Okay, so thank you so much, Francis, once again. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing this, insightful knowledge with us, the gold mine. Thank you so much, Francis. Everyone, have a good
Yeah,
night rest. Bye.
thank you for having me. Bye, guys. Bye.
You're welcome.